Welcome to the Bare Bones Biz monthly free webinar. And tonight's topic is a hot one, wrapping up 2011 so you can kick off 2012 profitably, easily, and stay in compliance with Uncle Sam. And my guest star tonight is none other than the world's greatest, highest functioning bookkeeper on the planet, Miss Gail Gudell. Hi, Gail.
Hello.
And if you don't know and you can't tell by our voices already, Gail and I are sisters. Gail's my big sister, which means when we're not working, she's in charge. But at Bare Bones Biz, thankfully, she works with me, and she helps keep me in compliance and organized and focused and all those things I am naturally not. So, Gail, thanks for coming today.
You're welcome. I love doing this. This is always really fun for me.
Well, we're going to have a blast. I want to do a little bit of housekeeping first. One is, if you're on the call today, thank you for showing up. Thanks for being here. Bring yourself to the party. That means feel free to interact with us. Now, we've got you all on mute right now. If you're having some technical challenges, you can raise your hand, and I can see if I can be of service to you. As Gail and I chat back and forth, I'll just check the attendee list, and if your hand is up and you need a little bit of help, let me know. You'll see that little hand, that little paw, on the control panel on your computer, and if you need some help, just raise it. Also, if you have a question, you can type the question in, or you can use the chat box. Either one. I'm going to be checking both of those throughout the webinar today. And hello, Dutch. I see you're there. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to chat it up with us and interrupt us with questions. Or if you ask a question that I think we're better off putting you on the phone, opening up the phone line to give us a little more information, I may do that. I might say, hey, you know what, let me open up your phone and see if you could give us a little more info about what you're asking, and then we could make it interactive and specific to you. I know that any question you bring to the party is probably going to be of service to more than just you. So feel
Miss
free
Ellie?
to type in. Yes, sir?
Miss Ellie, Marianne Ballantyne has her hand up.
Oh, let's see how she's doing. Thanks. And that helps, Gail, if you kind of
it's my nature.
It's your nature.
I can't help it.
Hey, Marianne, can you hear us all right?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
I thought the hand was down, so the little arrow is pointing down.
Uh-huh.
Does that mean my hand is up or down?
Well, I will make it go down.
Okay.
I can do that.
Marianne, your hand is now down.
If you click on the hand, it makes it go up, but then I can make your hand go down, which I just did.
Okay.
Fair enough?
All right.
Woo! Do you have a question, or were you just playing with the features?
I thought that you said that the hands were all down, and mine looked up, so I turned it down.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
It was nice for us to get a chance to say hello.
Hi, Marianne.
And now you can raise your hand again if you want to, or you can type a question. And either way, I'll keep an eye on the screens. And Gail, thanks for helping me do that too. Woohoo! Okay, Marianne, I'll turn you back into a mute. That's just for good call quality. So other than me and Gail, I'm going to have everybody on mute. So the raising your hand or typing in the question is the best and surest way to get our attention as the class goes on. We're going to talk fast. It's our nature, and there's a lot of information that we want to communicate. First thing I want to do before I neglect to share this with you is this website, barebonesbiz.com/tax-tips, is where we've stored the year-end checklist to which Gail and I are going to refer today. So when you sign on, when you put your name and email address right here, note that if you're already on our mailing list, it may pop up like you've entered the information before. But if you enter the same name and the same email address, you shouldn't get duplicate mailings. If for some reason you're on our mailing list and you're getting it more than once, you can either unsubscribe on one of those emails, or you can just let us know. Send us an email, ellen@barebonesbiz.com, and we'll make sure we take off the duplicate. But if you put in your name and your email address, then you can download this nifty little year-end checklist that to which Gail and I are going to refer. Do you like my grammar, Gail? Was that better?
Yes.
Okay, so what will happen is you're going to get
Your grammar was good.
Statement. My grammar was good.
Y-O-U-R.
Okay, so as you can check your email and get that year-end checklist. I should be getting mine any minute. So I just wanted to show you how that's going to work. And we're going to play with the year-end checklist together as we proceed with this call. Woohoo! There it is. And you can go right here and go get it. Da, 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 da. So just showing you how this will work. So we like to be nice and send you a freebie now and then. So that's what the year-end checklist. I'm going to let that load up here for a second. And then, Gail, I'm going to ask you to share a little bit of your story. First, let me talk. First, all about me.
Okay.
Once upon a time, I got my first job, and my first job was handing out cheese samples for a local cheese house. You know, think of a wine store. Well, this was a cheese store, and they had all sorts of gourmet cheeses. And I got this great job at age 14 because my older sister, Gail, worked there. And so Gail, once upon a time, used to work at the cheese house. And Gail, it's really at the cheese house, when you were a teenager, that the path on which you now travel, you first set foot, right? I mean,
yes.
Tell us about what made you understand.
Permanently and irrevocably traveled.
Here you are. Yeah. So talk about that very first moment of working at a small mom-and-pop shop, and what made you decide that the world of accounting was for you.
Well, I worked for this little mom-and-pop operation, and they really, really knew their stuff. They knew everything there was to know about cheeses, and they had a very profitable, really entrepreneurial, successful business. But every day, the mom of the mom-and-pop operation would make a deposit, and it would just make my hair stand on end. It just offended my natural sense of orderliness. And I just asked her one day, can I just do that for you?
So you made a deposit every day. What was wrong with that?
It was a mess.
Okay, so you just saw her gather cash up and
cash up, and sometimes it would be all there, and some days it wouldn't, and the checks would be out of order, and they would be wrong, and it was always crinkly and crumpled.
Okay, so I point this out because one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is assembling a bean team, is getting some good accounting professionals to help you stay in compliance with Uncle Sam, keep track of the money, so you can make more of it. Now, what you look for in a bean team is the characteristic that Gail just evidenced, and that is it makes them crazy when things are out of order. So you definitely want someone who is a little bit OCD, definitely tidy and persnickety. These are good characteristics of a bean team member. Would you agree, Gail?
Absolutely. I pride myself on that, where other people recoil in horror.
We love it. Now, I got to say, I am not like that. And so you can see that the balancing act in working with your bean team is to find people who complement you with skills that you don't have. Now, to tell a little more of our story, later on in our lives, Gail and I have had these moments where we've worked together. The next moment we worked together is we both worked for a restaurant chain, and I was the manager, and Gail was the bookkeeper. And Gail, as the bookkeeper, I think you trained over 100 other bookkeepers for that restaurant chain?
I did. Between managers and bookkeepers, I actually had to train probably close to 60 full charge bookkeepers, or day charge bookkeepers, and 40 managers. And
you don't have a degree in accounting. You're not a CPA. So how did you learn what you need to know about accounting?
By either making every mistake that you can possibly make in accounting, or finding and fixing everybody else's mistakes. It's truly, for me, it was really the school of hard knocks. It was just getting my feet wet and doing it. I just was thrown into it, and I had to make it work, so I had to figure out how to make it work.
Well, then the next point where Gail and I intersected on our careers is really the path that we're still on, is when I was working with my husband in our little plumbing company, I had to figure out my asset from my elbow because we weren't making any money. We were going into debt every month. Luckily, I had a good CPA who was willing to explain what a balance sheet was, what an income statement was, and even better, when I asked Gail to come to work with me at our plumbing company, well, she's been with me. We sold the company, but Gail stuck with me through every business venture I've had since then. So, Gail, I think we've worked together now for about 20 years.
Oh, I think so.
Isn't that amazing?
Thing to it. Well, not counting when we first started at the
teen, well, right.
It's
so we started when we were in our teens together. So, Gail's been an integral part of my team, and she has worked with me on many, many, many clients. And so we're going to share some tips about accounting, but one of the things that I wanted to bring up by explaining Gail's history is really great accounting professionals come in different shapes and sizes. You do need a great CPA. You also need a good bookkeeper, someone who is going to help you enter the data into your accounting system. And perhaps that bookkeeper is you. As a small company, that bookkeeper may well be you. I'm looking at a couple of folks on the list, and I know you're the bookkeepers at your company because we've already talked a little bit. And if that's the case, embrace that position. What is sometimes missing in the overall Bean team is the controller position. And the controller position is the person who is responsible for checking the work of the bookkeeper and then coordinating the information so that you can create good financial reports, the balance sheet, the profit and loss, and deliver that information to the CPA. Gail, a CPA or a tax accountant, these folks are generally not very good bookkeepers. Tell us a little bit about that.
The way I kind of view this is there's like 3 tiers of the Bean team. And sometimes you can have a bookkeeper and a controller that fill the same function. But the bookkeeper is a data entry person that's really got a lot of attention to detail and takes instruction well and knows that what to look for to see that her data is entered correctly. A controller is someone who can view the overall known financial position, like to look at your financials to actually say that when you look at a balance sheet, you can know for certain what your assets are and what your liabilities are and how to make managerial decisions off of that data. A CPA or a tax accountant or a tax preparer is very, very good at the theory. So the bookkeeper is a technician, the controller is your master technician, and your CPA is your theoretician. And CPAs love working with really good controllers and bookkeepers because it's not something that they like to do. And I, as a controller, do not like the theory part. I really heavily rely on my CPAs for that.
Well, and then the CPA, this is another thing I like to say about the CPA or the tax preparer, that their job is really twofold. One is to make sure you stay out of the pokey. Your CPA, right, is responsible for making sure you're in compliance with Uncle Sam. And the second thing that your CPA or tax accountant can help you do is craft a good tax strategy. And this is where that theory comes in. You know, how do you pay the right amount of tax and not too much? The tax accountant's job is to stay up on all that legislation and information and rules and regulations so that you stay out of the pokey and you don't pay more tax than you need to. Other than that, though, your CPA is usually not very helpful in making sure that your accounting is rockin' right, or that you know how to use QuickBooks, or if
I'm going to interrupt here to say too, if you're paying your CPA to do your bookkeeping for you, you're paying top dollar for a not so top dollar product because they really aren't very good bookkeepers. They can and will do it. They'll probably outsource it to someone else in their company that is more like a bookkeeper or a controller, but you're going to pay a lot more for something, and they don't know your business like someone who actually works in your business. That's another thing.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. If you're on the phone today, try and consider your own Bean team. And we're going to be referencing this Bean team throughout the hour. But you do need a good CPA. You need a good tax preparer. Do not try and do your own taxes. We may talk a little bit about this later, but Gail and I are of that opinion. And then you do need a good bookkeeper, someone who's going to enter sales, make the deposit, apply the customer payment, make the deposit, enter bills, pay bills, enter credit card charges, pay the credit card bill, and do the bank reconciliation, enter payroll. That's what I just named there is pretty much 90% of the accounting that needs to be done, and your bookkeeper can do that. This is usually a very part-time position. The bigger you are, the more data you have. But for most small mom and pop shops, we're talking about a few hours a week, just to give you an idea. Ladies and gents, might I suggest that as the owner of the company, you could become the controller of the company until you can afford to outsource it. And if you do embrace that position, if you do decide you're going to be the one to figure out how to run decent balance sheet and profit and loss, work with your bean team, work with your bookkeeper, work with your accountant to really lay claim to that position. And what Gail and I are going to do for the next 45 minutes here is model that behavior as best we can for you and show you some of the tools that we use. Now, in my business, I'm the owner. I am overall responsible for the financials. It's my job to know every line on my balance sheet and profit and loss. Gail works with me as a controller. She works super part-time here at Bare Bones Biz. She also does most of the bookkeeping for me, I think mostly because you're nice to me and you're my sister. Gail does the bookkeeping, but the number one purpose that Gail serves here at Bare Bones Biz is to help make sure that my financial reports are rockin' right and on time. And what we do is we use checklists. What we're going to show you today is a year-end checklist, which is super duper helpful. You can use a checklist to make sure that your books are rockin' right and your financial reports are done and Uncle Sam ready every month. But because of the time constraint that we have today, we're going to focus on getting the year-end wrapped up and then get this year kicked off. So,
hey, Ellen,
got your
sorry to
year
interrupt you for one sec.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a couple of people that have questions, and one of them is Trish Sakamono.
Oh, I see that. Hey, Tay.
Hi, Trish. Can we tell these people that that's another sister?
Woohoo! Awesome.
I don't know how to do the questions, so.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we're okay so far. They're just saying what a great job we're doing. Thank you, Nancy, and hi, Sue and Bill.
Hi,
okay.
Trish.
So
hi, Stacy.
Good job. It's like Miss Julie on Romper Room.
It is.
Okay. So there's the year-end checklist. We're going to look at that again in just a moment. Before we do that, let's talk about spending the time you need to get the taxes wrapped up for this year. So what I want to do is go peek at a little calendar. Now, this is kind of a play calendar that I put up for our benefits for the class today. So I'm a big fan of, if you want to get something done, we better make sure it gets on the calendar so that we have time to do it. Between the end of the year and tax time, or maybe even starting in December, it's not a bad idea to put an hour or half an hour every week that's to check on tax return progress. Now, this would be stuff that you need to get together for your tax accountant. If you put this appointment on your calendar every week until March 15th for the corporation, or April 15th if you're a sole proprietor, right? I guess you'd have the 16th to get that done.
We do have till the 16th this year.
Okay. Then we're going to make sure that we've got some time on our calendar to do that. Oh, well, I was trying to put that date on the calendar. What happened to it?
I don't know.
So during that meeting, having a year-end checklist is a good idea so that you have something that you can use, reference as, let me find it. Okay, it's something that you can reference to make sure that you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's and that you're Uncle Sam ready. Now, the accounting checklist that we've given you is a Word document. You can do a file, save as, and edit this to work for you. The best way to use this checklist is to start with the meeting, right?
Here it is again. There's the meeting.
To done, all right, every week. And Gail and I are going to suggest that 2 of these meetings between the end of the year and tax time, and it's coming up, so if you haven't had these meetings, schedule them right now. that 2 of these meetings you invite your CPA to. So Gail, let's talk about that. If we schedule these meetings, let me try this again. And we're going to go every Friday, let's say till April 15th, 16th. Okay. I don't know what I did wrong, but I must have canceled it. If I put my financial color on here and I save that. Okay. What did I do? Did I blow it again? Oh, you know what? I'm putting it on my other calendar is I think my problem.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
You've got to put it on
Gail, I'll try this again. At your meeting with the CPA, you've got your year-end checklist. You want to schedule 2 meetings with the CPA. What are you going to bring to those meetings? How are you going to make sure that you're in communication with the CPA? Why don't you give us some ideas of what you would do at that meeting?
Okay, well, I'm going to address a couple of things because I take some things. Ellen and I had sort of talked about this webinar ahead of time, and what I do is all year long, I have a file that's ongoing all year long that says current year tax information. So all the oddball things that I get during the year, if we buy or sell an investment or an asset, if we get 1099s that only come once a year, all of these things I just drop into that file. So my very first meeting with my CPA, I take that file, my previous year tax returns, because they'll have a copy, but I use mine as a reference, and all of my prepared financial returns. So if it's for a business, I would take my most current profit and loss, my most current balance sheet, a reconciled bank statement, my last reconciled bank statement, an accounts receivable report, and accounts payable report. And I would go in to have my preliminary meeting, and then I would sit down with my CPA and would go over the things that I just don't happen to have at this point. It turned out I was missing, I do Ellen and Bob's personal taxes too. So when I meet with our CPA, I do it all at the same time, and I was missing a W-2 and a couple of other things like that. So my very first meeting is 90% of what I'm going to need. And my next meeting, which is usually a week to 10 days later, is the remainder is the things that I didn't have at the first meeting. Does that make sense, Ellen?
It does. And okay, now that Gail just listed the stuff that she would take to that meeting. That's because she's really organized. If you don't have all that stuff, take the shoebox.
Take what you have
of info. All right, take what you have. Now, at this point in the year, if you're slow to the draw, if you know you're behind, Gail and I want to give you a couple of tips. One is, if you think you're the worst person in the world, or what a mess you've made with your financials, if you still don't have 2009 and 2010 done yet, and now we're talking about taking, financial reports to your accountant for 2011, here's what we want you to do. Get over it, admit it, and get her done. What you're looking for is to be at a known financial position as of 12/31/2011 through all prior years. Okay, so what we're going to tell you is at this point, don't worry about getting every month right, all the bank recs done. We want you to go to your CPA and say, I'm going to lay myself at your feet here, and I need your help. I want to get current through last year, and this is what I have not yet done. If you've got letters from the IRS, bring them. If you haven't done your taxes for the last 2 years, tell them. Don't try and snow them. Just say, I want to make this as easy as possible to get caught up, and the only date I'm really interested in being rockin' right is this one. The others I want good enough for Uncle Sam. Gail, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so the meetings now, I figured out how to do this. The meetings now, you're going to meet once a week with your self, and then bring your tax person. What did I put here? I'm going to open this area. Bring your tax person once or twice before you have to put your taxes together. So what you're saying, Gail, is bring it all in, then you'll get some information from him, you'll work through your year-end checklist bit by bit, and then you'll meet again so that you can get your taxes signed off and ready to submit.
Exactly.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, I've got some notes here that I want to share with you. If you're not certain that you have a good bean team, I want you to put a good bean team together. And I wrote a blog about this, so I'm going to get this on the screen for a second, on how to get a great bean team. I've got so much going on with the thing.
I know, I can tell.
So, accountant. So this is my blog, and this blog right here, it's called Making Money, and this is going to be some really good information for you about how to put together a good bean team and get to a known financial position. So I thought I'd just share this too. When you meet with your CPA, these are some really good questions to ask. You can look through your month-end checklist, or what we're going to say is use your year-end checklist together. This is how you're going to get to a known financial position by the end of, for the end of last year, 12/31/2011. So that's on my blog, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste that information into the chat box, that link, and if you want to go to that page, you can download that information or go look at it. All right? Fair enough? Okay, Gail, so we've got our meeting, the first meeting with the accountant. We've got our year-end checklist. What I thought we could do now is go through this year-end checklist and talk about some of the details for as far as nailing down your balance sheet, your profit and loss, and getting Uncle Sam ready. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay, let's see if I'm skipping anything. I think we're ready to rock and roll. Okay, so this is the year-end checklist, and notice what we're going to do is go through the basic balance sheet. Now, your balance sheet is the King Granddaddy scorecard. That is the most important document that you're going to put together for Uncle Sam and for your own accounting. When you get the balance sheet nailed down for 12/31/2011, we're going to be able to use those balances not only for your tax return, but also to nail down, update, adjust to right the balances in your accounting program. So really the main piece of the whole puzzle to get your taxes done and get your financials right is to make sure that the balance sheet balances as of the last day of the last year are rocking right. And so the year-end checklist goes through the assets. I'm going to go through this quickly, and then we'll come back and look at some of the detail. Goes through the liabilities, and then the equity accounts. In addition to that, we're going to check out payroll. And you know why? Payroll is usually a place we get things balled up, and you really don't want to ball things up. And then income and expenses. This is information that's from the profit and loss, which is the other major financial report. So if you nail down the balances on that balance sheet, they become the beginning balances for 2012. And if you go through this whole checklist, you know what? You've got a darn good shot of turning in a rock and right tax return and operating from a known financial position. So Gail, how about if I just kind of go through this and ask you a couple of questions as we go for how to use this checklist?
Okay.
Okay, so reconcile all checking and savings accounts. So would the bookkeeper do this or the controller?
It depends on if you have a bookkeeper or a controller. Because I'm your bookkeeper and your controller, and I'm the controller for most of my clients because they don't need a bookkeeper, I do all of that. And I make sure I'm in balance on every account. Every single checking account that I have for all of my clients are in balance. And my thinking on this is, if your checking accounts are in balance, we know that we've accounted for all of the money in and all of the money out. So we've got a pretty good idea that somewhere or another, everything that's happened in our business has been represented because
most of the entries go through the checking account.
Right.
Okay, so reconciling the checking account, I want to just add another little detail as a business consultant and as a business owner. If you delegate most of your bookkeeping to somebody else, as the owner of the company, you might want to do the checking and savings account reconciliations yourself. This is a great way to provide some checks and balances.
Also, as the business owner, it's really important, no matter who does the reconciliation, it's really important that you look at your bank statements.
Absolutely. That's an underline. Because, again, most of the transactions of your company, the money, is going to be flowing into and out of that checking account. If someone is going to rip you off, if anything weird is going on, that's where some evidence is going to show up. And also so that you can make sure things are getting coded to the right accounts in your accounting system.
Like something to look for is if you have a really nice positive cash flow position, but you're noticing on your bank statement that you got all sorts of non-sufficient fund check charges, somebody's not managing that account properly.
Right, that's a really good idea. So if somebody's bouncing checks, are they writing the checks too late, or what's going on?
It's
definitely
deposits not getting made timely. Yes.
Now keep this in mind. Another little aside. Gail and I are jumping around a little bit. We just thought we'd do this and try and cover as much as we could during our time together. So I apologize if we're talking fast, and you're welcome to interrupt us with a question or by raising your hand. But if you are behind on your taxes, let's say you didn't get 2010 or 2009 done, let your CPA, if you can get the checking and savings, the cash accounts, those statements from the bank, they're going to use those ending balances as your ending balances because that's verifiable. That's fine. What we're going to suggest if you've gotten behind is in your accounting system, reconcile everything through 12/31/2011. Do one big reconciliation and just get caught up.
If you have to. If you're behind, you can just
Yeah. Okay. So that's sloppy, and I can already feel you going, oh, really?
I'm like, what?
But that's my concern.
Ellen said it.
Yeah. My concern is if you're that far behind, more important than the detail of previous years is getting caught up. So get yourself caught up.
Yes.
Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So reconcile the checking and savings accounts, because understand on the balance sheet is going to be a list of your assets. That's what you have. Your liabilities, assets equals liabilities plus equity. So assets, that's what you have. Liabilities is what you owe. And really the difference is equity. It's what you own. Assets, liabilities, these are verifiable. And that's what this year-end accounting checklist is all about. So we can verify what you have in your cash accounts and checkings and savings accounts, and the number one place we go, the only place we really go to verify that is our bank statements. In your accounting program, there's going to be a functionality to reconcile those accounts. We suggest you learn how to do that in your QuickBooks or in your Successware, whatever accounting program you're using. All right. Well, otherwise, your CPA is just going to use the ending balance on that checking account and say, you know what, the bank's probably right, and you don't know what you're doing.
Well, we have a really good CPA, and I met with him today for Ellen's business, and this is how our conversation went. I sat down, and I work with him with many clients, but I was doing Ellen's bare bones biz account today. And he says, starts at the top. Are your checking accounts in balance? I said, yes, here's my last bank statements. And then next, audit your accounts receivable. He said, are all of your accounts receivable collectible? Yes. Are there any accounts receivable on there that they all just have to be real? Either people owe you the money or they don't. You can't just make it up. So once again, I showed him a list of all of the people that we had current. Ours is very small, our accounts receivable. So people that we've made sales with that we are waiting to promise or promising to fulfill coming up in the future. And then all of our assets on the balance sheet, he said, do you have all of these computers still? Did you buy anything new? Yes. Did you sell anything? Yes. Did you retire anything? Yes. So we went through the list of our assets. And then you just kind of go down the whole list like that. These are what we have for our assets. And then on the liability side,
Well, now hold on for just a sec. Let me interrupt there. Sure. So that's a really good example of like what you would go through at the first meeting, and then for the next meeting, you can get the pieces of the puzzle put back together. After this first meeting with the CPA, you will spend time each week doing what you need to do. If there's information you need to assemble for him, if you haven't counted your inventory and he's asked you to, or she's asked you to, then you do that. If they're going to make a depreciation adjustment for your assets, they're going to be in charge of getting that information from you so that they can do that. So this checklist you're going to bring to every meeting with your CPA, as well as use to check things off that you've been asked to do. So again, the best way to use this is to make this really specific to what you and your CPA and your bookkeeper are doing to get the assets nailed, the liabilities nailed, etc. Okay, I just wanted to underline that point. Okay, there's a couple of little details here. Let's jump into liabilities a little bit, Gail.
Okay.
So for the checking account, the savings account, for our accounts receivable, we're going to go and verify that information with the bank statements, with a list of receivables, with even the hard documents.
That's on the asset side.
That's on the asset side. So on the liability side, we're going to do the same things. We're going to look for the evidence of what those account balances should be.
If you have an accounts payable balance on your balance sheet, it means that you have bills that you've received that you've not yet paid. So you want to have a detailed list that matches that dollar amount that appears on your balance sheet that proves that if you have $15,000 in accounts payable as a flat lump sum on your balance sheet, you have supporting bills that prove that you have that much that you actually owe, and they have to be real. They can't be too old. You can't be carrying accounts payable from way, way, way back when. So once again, this is a really good time to take a look at those lists and go, oh, I'm never going to pay that. I already paid that. That's a duplicate.
I entered it wrong.
This comes up a lot.
Okay. And then, Gail, what are some other liabilities that probably appear on the balance sheet? That
Okay, most people in business have some sort of a loan. You either have a loan for equipment, like if you're in a plumbing business and you have 10 plumbing trucks, you're most likely going to be, you will have financed some of those, so you would have had loans, or you will have loans for those vehicles. So what you can do is you take your last statement of the year from your lender and you make certain that the amount on your balance sheet on the liability side is actually what appears on the statement for the principal that you still owe on that loan. You do that with your line of credit as well.
So you're going to reconcile that statement, and then you're going to make an adjustment. In fact, if you're on the call, you're probably familiar with the, oh, I've got a little note. You guys seem to be coming in and out. Can't hear you properly. Gail, I'm going to get off my headset. That might be part of the problem.
Okay.
Are you on your handset up there?
I'm just on the, my headset.
Yeah, okay, hang on just a second. That might be better. Does that sound better? It's the end of the day. I think my headset might just be conking out. Carol, if that sounds better, let me know. Rock on. Okay, we're gonna carry on. Sometimes, by the way, it's just a go to meeting thing. Sometimes it works great, and sometimes not so great. So I apologize for that, but maybe that's a little bit better. So you're gonna find. Oh, good. That sounds better. Thanks, Carol. Okay, so we're gonna verify those liabilities by the statements. So credit cards are another liability. Gail, let's talk a little bit about credit cards. I want to take a little bunny trail here. We're going to reconcile the credit cards.
How much time do you have?
Well, we're going to spend a minute or two. Let me just start with some of the basics. Within your accounting system, there is probably a really nice functionality for how to handle credit card charges, how to enter them, and then how to reconcile the statement and pay it. So if you've got QuickBooks or Peachtree or one of those really sound, solid accounting programs, type in how to enter credit card charges in your help screen and start using your accounting program the way it was designed. Most people ball it up on credit cards. And if you've got a super sophisticated industry-specific accounting program, God bless you. Call their support team and have them talk you through it. But that's one of the things I don't like about fancy schmancy accounting programs is sometimes they make some of the functionality isn't quite as slick as QuickBooks or some of the other fully integrated accounting programs. Having said that, though, Gail, we're going to reconcile our credit card statements and make sure that the balance is right and that the balance is what we owe. But I know you have some tips for how to use a company credit card as well. Do you want to share some?
Well, it's one of my, I've got a small list that I'm compiling of probably the top 10 things that I'm going to recommend right at the very end. And one of them is use a dedicated business credit card. Just get one credit card and use it for all of your business purchases. Try your hardest to not overlap personal with business, because it just makes it so much easier to reconcile these accounts when you're not trying to sort out what's personal and what's business, especially if you're outsourcing, or especially if you are not doing your own bookkeeping and you're having somebody else do it. It's very, very difficult for them to know if you went to dinner with a client or if you went to dinner with your husband.
And I'm going to add this. Gail's trained me over the years. Once upon a time, I used to just willy-nilly charge on every card, and I still do some of this. You're patient with me when I pull out the wrong credit card. But yeah. But one of the things that I do is when you sign the credit card bill, use the proper card in the first place, and when you sign your, the copy and you get your receipt, right then on your receipt, write down what it's for. Credit cards are really one of the things that Gail and I spend a lot of time trying to clean up when we work with our clients. So you might have made a mess in the past. That's okay. We're going to take a guess, and you're going to fix it and try and get as right as possible as of 12/31/2011. But one of the ways you can make 2012 a lot cleaner and a lot easier is to tighten up your standards when it comes to using these credit cards, and give your bookkeeper a clue as to how they can enter that charge, what it's for, right when you're making the charge itself.
I'm going to make a suggestion here, too. What's going to happen is if your bookkeeper, your controller, or your accountant is uncertain if it's business or personal, they're going to err on the side of caution and make it personal, and you won't get a deduction for it, even if it's a legitimate business expense, if you haven't taken the time to give them the information that they need to code off that information correctly.
Rock on. One other thing, too, with just as a general rule with your accounting, if you do mix business and personal, you put yourself at risk of being, if you were to ever be sued someday, it's evidence that you have not treated your company as a separate entity, and this is what in lawsuits they call piercing the corporate veil.
Piercing the corporate veil.
Piercing the corporate veil. It sounds like a religious ceremony.
Yes, it sounds like something from the Dark Ages.
Okay, so on the liabilities, basic information here is going to be that we're going to verify these liability accounts, just like we do the asset accounts. This is what auditing is. If you ever get audited, they're going to go line by line, like we're suggesting you do now. So we're kind of suggesting you pre-audit your books, right, Gail?
Well, it's not even pre-audit. It's just, as a business owner, it's your responsibility to know what's on every line.
That's just like you said it nicer than I did in fewer words.
And Mary Ann has her hand up, I think.
She does, and she's asking a question. Is it okay to write a memo on the credit card charge in QuickBooks instead of keeping the physical receipt? That's a great question. What do you think about that?
Yes, but the problem is the IRS has gone back and forth on this. I'm going to go over this really fast. They have a standard where you're supposed to keep your receipts. The bank statement won't qualify as a receipt, and they actually right now are still thinking you're supposed to keep your receipts. They're moving further and further away from that. There's ways of scanning those receipts into like a paperless receipt system. Anything over $75 right now, you should keep a physical receipt, but thankfully they're moving further and further away from that. But yes, always use a note in the memo line in QuickBooks.
Okay, so Marianne, I hope you heard that. I just said Carol says she can't hear us at all. Must be GoToMeeting. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm sorry, because now we're both on landlines. It could be just a GoToMeeting thing. I'm sorry, Carol. Okay, and Marianne got the answer to that, so very good.
Okay,
so when in doubt, save it, at least for now. Now the equity accounts, this is where your CPA is going to be very useful. Gail, talk to us about how we're going to verify the equity accounts and what kind of questions you want to ask your CPA as you assemble your year-end checklist for them.
Well, equity, equity, the equity accounts on your balance sheet in a business are real numbers. People will always say, oh, just make an adjustment into the equity section if you can't figure out what you've done. But equity has to match. Equity shows the difference between what you own or what you have, your assets, and what you owe, your liability. So equity has to be real. And your CPA is going to ask you about any money that you took out as like a distribution to yourself.
Well, let me just say that this is a good discussion to have with your CPA
Yes.
in terms of how are you taking money out of and putting money back into the company. Because what Gail taught me is that the IRS is always looking for a taxable event. So you can't just willy-nilly put money in and take money out of your company. How do I know this? Because that's something I've tried to do.
Because we've had that discussion.
Absolutely. So I think that the bottom line discussion in this equity section is to make sure that your CPA has some counsel for you as to the best way to put money in and take money out. For instance, if you put a bunch of money in and you're calling it a loan, do we have to act as if it's really a loan? I mean, you have to have loan documents. You have to pay back on a regular basis.
Yes, you have to be very, very clear about what your position in that company is. Once again, if you're a corporation and you're ever in a position like you were saying before, you don't want to have too much exposure personally. This is why we have a corporation. So you want to make sure your corporation's nice and neat and tidy, and it protects you personally. So we want to make sure these lines aren't blurry. They're supposed to be very, very clear.
So at this point, what I'm going to say by way of summary is that if you use this year-end checklist to go line by line, down the balance sheet, down the profit and loss, and ask, what is this? Is it right? How do I know it's right? How do I get it right? Those are the questions that you want to ask. And that little blog that I wrote about it has got great content to supplement this checklist for when you go and meet with your CPA. Drag your bookkeeper along, get the whole Bean team together, and work through a year-end checklist like this to make sure that it's rockin' right. Now, Gail, we're going to run low on time, so I want to move kind of quickly, and I want to get to some basic tips so that we can make sure 2012 is kicked off.
I have a great little list.
Okay, good, good, good. The one thing I do want to say about payroll, and this checklist has some really nice due dates, et cetera, for you. The one thing I want to say about payroll is the #1 place we discover big messes. When Gail and I work with our clients, payroll is usually wrong. If I were a betting man, I would bet 100% of the time that the way you're showing your payroll on your financial reports is not right.
If you're doing it in-house.
If you're trying to do it in-house. And so our #1 piece of advice is, dun-da-da-da, Gail, go for it.
Hire a payroll service.
We love payroll services. We love ADP and Paychecks because they're big. You could do payroll yourself, but you will probably do it wrong. And if you do it wrong, you can go to the pokey. And I'm telling you,
it's the most expensive mistake you can make.
Yeah.
It's hands down. I've seen more money wasted on poorly prepared payroll than anything else, inadvertently. I mean, it's not like people are trying to mess it up. It's just really, really hard to get it right.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. It's an engineering problem. So if you
I've never heard it that way.
Well, if you decide to take our advice, we hope you do, and you'd say, okay, this is the year we're going to move to a payroll service. What I would do is I'd call ADP or Paychecks, and I would pick the one, either is fine, it's Coke or Pepsi as far as your decision goes. Pick the one who has the best rep and the most helpful rep, and ask that rep to promise you that they're going to help you not only get going on it, but to review what you've done and make sure that you're paid up. The payroll service and your CPA have to make a transition for you to make sure that you've done it right so far through last year and through this year to date, so that with confidence you can start putting the information from the payroll reports into your accounting program, and they make your tax payments for you. Life is good. But there could be a messy moment. Get your payroll service and your CPA aware of what you're doing and have them help you make that transition. Does that make sense, G?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love doing payroll, and even I don't do my own payroll anymore for anybody. I outsource every payroll.
God bless you. Okay, so what we want to do now is work towards a known financial position for the end of the year. Assets, liabilities, equity, sales, expenses, payroll. This rockin' year-end checklist is going to really help you out. Now, when you do that, you want to make sure that those adjusted balances on your balance sheet are entered, or that we adjust the ending balances on the balance sheet in your accounting program as of 12/31/2011. That means your balance sheet is right as of 1/1/2012. Woohoo! Now, the very good news is that the profit and loss part of your financial statements, that starts over every year. It's only the balance sheet that carries through. So get that rocking right, and this year you're off to a really good start. So Gail, could you share some ideas for making sure that last year's wrapped up and that this year is even better than ever when it comes to operating from a known financial position and keeping track of the money, honey?
Okay, first and foremost, go through the year-end checklist and use it. We have a month-end checklist version too. Get in the habit of doing this every month. I catch myself making mistakes. I don't mind making mistakes as long as I fix them. But use your checklists. Now, the next thing I'm going to say is, here's my little list of advice. If you already have a tax problem, stop procrastinating. Handle it.
Yep.
It's so much easier to face it head on than keep it, like having sleepless nights about it. It's never as bad as you think. It might be worse than you think, but at least you'll know.
Yeah.
Okay, stay semi-organized. I'm really organized, but most people just need to stay semi-organized. Create and organize a simple filing system. There's many, many, many samples available. There's a lot of professional organizers. There's an association called NACO, National Association of Professional Organizers. There's all sorts of tools.
Nerd fest. Nerd fest.
I know, nerd fest. Organize yourself in a way that will work for you. Semi-organized is good enough. Use a dedicated business card. This is really, really good advice for most people. It makes your life a lot easier. It makes everybody's life easier. Use your calendar. Make dates. Put all these dates that are on this year-end checklist and month-end checklist, put them on your calendar and use them.
Woohoo! Okay, I use Outlook all the time. I use a week-long version
Yep.
like that, week-at-a-time version. Very good idea.
Okay, now one more thing. That current year tax info file, create a place in your filing system that has one drop folder to put anything weird. Charitable contributions are a perfect example. Put your receipts for that stuff in that file. Medical expenses, any of those things that are going to be pertinent to your tax return. And another thing to do is if you travel at all for work, if you're ever in your car like any of us are, have a place in your car, a designated place in your car to put any receipts that you find that you come up with during the course of the day. If you go to the bank, put your deposit receipt in there. If you go to the gas station or you use a credit card, put those receipts in there, and then with regularity take them out of that place and take them into your office and give them to your bookkeeper or handle them yourself. But that way you only really have one place that you're depositing this information that's important to have. And then last but not least, be kind and gentle with yourself. Nobody's great at this. Everybody struggles with this. Just be kind and gentle with yourself and know that you're doing the best you can and you're a good steward of your money.
You know, I think that's really important because I was talking to somebody on the phone. We were doing a radio show the other day, and they said, well, you know, when you start a business, there's a lot you've got to know, and, you know, you got to make sure you don't break any rules, and, you know, before you even get started, you better find out about all the licensing. Let me just say this. Nobody's ever done it perfectly. No one's ever come out of the gate in business and not made a mistake. You don't want to be fraudulent. That's deliberately making, you know, things wrong. That's lying, right? But if you make a mistake and you catch it and you make it better, even if you get audited, that's going to be helpful to you. So if you've made mistakes in the past, like Gail said, I just love that, Gail. Be gentle with yourself. Be nice. Just try to get increasingly compliant. Once upon a time, I thought if I took the money in cash, if I paid my guys under the table,
I don't, la, 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 la.
Every stupid thing you can do. And I say it lovingly now, because most of the time I didn't know better. But I will tell you that the more compliant I've gotten, the richer I've gotten. There really isn't any reason why you can't get increasingly compliant and increasingly wealthy, even if what we do with our, what our politicians do with our money and all the goofy things that are going on, in spite of that, this is still a great country to have a business in, and you can make a lot of money. And for those of you who are from outside the country, well, being compliant with whatever rules there are. I just noticed on our list we've got some out of the U.S. people on the call today. Woohoo!
Oh, here's a point
now
we can make. Here's a point we can make really fast.
Well, I want to make sure we have time for questions.
Oh, okay, because I was just going to say,
so we've only got
balance
5
sheet is
minutes.
the same all over the world.
Oh, okay, that's worth saying. Go ahead and say that.
A balance sheet is a balance sheet no matter, they may look a little bit different, but your balance sheet in Japan is going to look like our balance sheet here in the States, because assets are assets and liabilities are liabilities. And it's, accounting is a universal language.
So how about that? It's like biochemistry accounting. It's the same all over the world.
It is what it is.
Okay, if you look at your chat box, dear attendees, I have 2 hot links for you. One is that blog that talks about the meeting with your Bean team, and the other is the website where you can download your year-end checklist. So it's a tax tip. So you can hot link straight from it. Hope that makes that helpful to you. And we've got time for a few more questions. Hey, Hemingways and Blantons, we're going to start at 5 after 7, if that's okay. That'll give you a chance to take a little break before we jump into our next webinar. But I'd love to answer some questions. So if you've got one, okay. This is great. Oh, you gals make me feel better about my worries. I'm not so bad off. Thanks, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. I can't see those. I can only hear you. You have to tell me what you're seeing.
Okay, I got that one, and then I got an okay on Stacy. Thank you very much. Hey, Wanda, I just put the second link in on the chat, so maybe scroll around on that chat. It's in there. It's in there on the chat list, and I can't show you that. I can show you this. Here it is. I'll put it back in again. That might be helpful to you. So I will just chat that to the entire audience again. So there are a couple of, there's a couple of, is this the right one? I want to make sure I'm on this one before I go on.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay, this is helpful. Oh, yay. Even more helpful than my CPA. Okay, Marianne, let me tell you this about your CPA. Most CPAs are not very good communicators, even if they're pretty good at what they do. So if you sit with your CPA and you say, listen, I went to this webinar, I got this checklist, I really want to become a better financial steward, will you help me? You expect to hear that person say, I'd love to help you. What do you need from me? If they act like a martyr, I don't have time for you, you don't know how much I've done for you without even charging you for it, we don't need that. And if they act like an intimidator, don't you worry about that, I'll take care of this, you just go about your business.
You don't need to know that, is my
You don't need to know that? Oh my gosh, that just makes my skin crawl. So what you're looking for is your CPA to be willing, and you can take the lead as far as the communication goes. And say, I don't know that I've made my expectations clear before. I haven't really known what my expectations are. But I think if we use this checklist and you help me understand my asset from my elbow, we go line by line down my financials, I think that could go a long way to help make me understand what's going on with my money. Because after all, Gail, whose money is it?
Yours. That's
right.
Yes.
So, yes, Carol, we are going to make this webinar available. I did record it, so I'll, if you're not my Facebook friend, please be my Facebook friend. I'm going to go to, you can go to Facebook, Ellen Rohr. I communicate a lot on Facebook. My son thinks I do a little bit too much here. And I also have a Bare Bones Biz page here. This is a great way for us to stay in touch. So do come and visit me on Facebook. This works across the planet. Bare Bones Biz is our Facebook page. And I'll post this webinar on the Facebook page. And then, Gail, what's the Association of...
National Association of Professional Organizers, NAPO. But you can Google. Like today in preparation for this meeting, I just Googled tax tips and organization tips for year-end and got all sorts of great information because I have my own, but I kind of wanted something fresh just use your search engine. You can always find really, really good stuff. That's it.
Okay, this is a really good resource. Gail went to the National Convention. I thought that had to be the nerdiest.
It's really nerdy.
Oh, look at this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what.
Okay, so Shell, there you go. And Gail, if I haven't done taxes in the U.S. for a few years, who would be a good person to consult? Okay, where would you start from scratch if you didn't have a CPA?
I'd talk to, if you're in a professional organization, like if you're, you're in your National Chimney Sweeps Guild or Plumbers of America Go Forth or whatever, your
whatever
organization.
Industry association.
Yes, industry associated, and talk to people that you know and respect that seem profitable, and ask them about the tax accountants that they use. And you're going to need tax advice first. If you haven't filed your taxes in the States and you're just coming back, you're going to want to get set up correctly. Does that make sense?
That does. That's really,
okay.
Really good advice. So, Carol, you also, just maybe your chamber or a local business owner whom seems to have their act together, if they really do, they're probably going to be generous with help. If they don't, they might kind of shut you down. So just ask 5 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see if you could, and then once you get a recommend from a tax preparer, meet with them and also ask them for some testimonials.
And don't take them on because somebody referred them. You have to like them too.
Good point.
Somebody else's personality might be well suited to that tax preparer, but maybe yours isn't. Be very, very clear that this is you want a good relationship with that person.
And you know what? That's all we have time for. I'm going to end with this, though. My buddy Matt said all that KFP work that he's been doing is paying off because he actually knows what we're talking about now. LOL.
Who's Matt?
Matt T.
Oh, yay!
I know. Good for you. That is so cute.
Oh, I'm happy about that. Good for you.
Well, the hour went so fast. Gail, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For this wild and woolly look at getting 2011 wrapped up.
Only
2012
nerds like
Kickoff.
us would think that this was exciting, Ellen.
Oh, I loved it.
I
loved it. Well, you'll have to have us. You'll have to come back again and help us with getting prepared. Let's meet earlier in the year next time, and we'll get prepared while the year is still on.
Absolutely. It's been a blast, you guys. Talk to y'all.
Rock on.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Love, love, love. Bye-bye. Rock and awesome.